You're listening to the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Football Podcast with host Howard Bender and John Impemba.
What's going on, FA Nation? John Impemba here with Howard Bender, bringing you another edition of the Fantasy Alarm NFL DFS podcast. Howard here reviewing Week 8 of the fantasy football season. We have a nice 11-game slate here, some pretty good matchups. You've done the watch list already, still added to it. What's your first impression so far?
I'm sorry, John, I don't do impressions.
All right, fine. Don't give an impression. I don't care.
Interesting slate. Definitely an interesting slate. I actually don't really like it as much as maybe you do. I think that there are some interesting names that we can look at, but overall, I don't really love it. We got
a lot of high point spreads here. A lot of games over 50. I mean, I know that's sort of been the trend of the season, anyways. But
right, and the unders have been hitting a lot more lately too. That's
true. That's fair. That is fair. Definitely some games definitely overpriced. But I think there's going to be some obvious chalk moments, and we'll cover them as we come across. But that is a good point. We talked about that, about the Thursday night game as we're recording here Thursday after that game. Another miserable Thursday night football game to watch, but the unders now have hit that one for the last 5, and the Panthers and Falcons have also been playing a lot of games that have come under the total. So yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe we're set up for a little bit of a downturn here with some of these point spreads, expecting more fantasy production.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I really do. I mean, listen, obviously there are guys who we're going to go with, and we're going to try and mine for as much value as we can. Last week was crazy, right? Because we had already recorded, and then Friday, all that news broke with Joe Mixon being out and Aaron Jones being out, and it just turned into like a real crazy week. And I've gotten a lot of talked to a lot of people who had some really high scoring lineups. They were super stoked about, like 185 points, and then realizing that they didn't even cash, and not really understanding why, and, having to explain to them that, listen, all the value hit, and so did all the chalk. The priced up chalk also was a hit. Everybody hit last week. There were very few true disappointments. I mean, there were a couple here and there, but man, overall, Devontae Adams was highly owned. Tyler Lockett was highly owned. Everybody had Gio Bernard. Everybody had Jamal Williams. So, it was just kind of one of those weeks. And now, we kind of turn around and we look at this week, and yeah, you've got, Indianapolis, Detroit is a 50. Green Bay, Minnesota is a 51.5. Tennessee, Cincinnati is a 53.5. Vegas, Cleveland is a 51. Seattle, San Francisco is a 54. But we'll obviously go through position by position. But
what is telling a little bit here, Howard, and as we look over the spreads, is actually, if you look at what these games opened at, Minnesota, Green Bay opened at 55.5 down to 51.5, like you said. Las Vegas, Cleveland opened 55.5 down to 50.5. Tennessee, Cincinnati opened 55.5 down to 52.5. So a lot of people betting the unders are dropping the game totals here, probably because the same thing we said, that Vegas is out here just overpricing everything on the early slates when they open up.
Yeah, that's definitely what's going down. But all right, well, let's see if we can't make heads or tails of this. And let's start with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, you got to think Aaron Rodgers off the bat, right? Minnesota home.
Sure.
You got Devontae Adams back. Could have Alan Lazard back. He's practiced 2 straight days. Not saying he'll go ahead and just immediately play a bunch of snaps, but just added weaponry. And Lazard scored in the first game matchup there against Minnesota. Rodgers, of course, came out of the gate firing 4 touchdowns, 364 yards against Minnesota in this one. So for me, he's definitely the top quarterback price-wise that I would be looking at. Of course, he's the 3rd highest priced guy, so I'm not telling you anything you haven't already known.
Yeah, listen, I'm not going to ignore Russell Wilson either. Obviously, that game is expected to be one of the more high scoring of the group. That's still sitting at a 54. And we've seen the Seahawks play these big games. But I'm with you. I like Aaron Rodgers. Save a couple $100 off of Wilson. I mean, it's hysterical that Mahomes at 8,100 on DraftKings, the priciest guy. Like, there's no reason for this dude to throw. There's no reason.
Right. And the thing is, even if they do, you need him to pay off that tag by throwing like 3 scores or getting 3 touchdowns, whether he runs one in, throws for 2. But if he does what he did against Denver, in which they won 43-16, he gave you 12 fantasy points in that game. Like, the defense could just as easily score a couple times here against the Jets and put up the points. So I'm with you. That's far too expensive for Patrick Mahomes. And it's not that he's not capable. There are almost 3 touchdown favorites he could throw for all those scores and put up the numbers. But I just think that the money could be better spent at some of the other price guys around him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving further down. Justin Herbert interests you? Ryan Tannehill interests you?
Herbert more than Tannehill. Tannehill seeing him at 68 is surprising to me. I know Cincinnati's defense and everything, but I mean, this is Derrick Henry season we're talking about. And this is Tannehill's highest price point all year long. He was only $6,200 last week against Pittsburgh. Now they're on the road, Cincinnati. I don't know. Like, I understand the numbers have been great for him, but 6,800 just seems like too expensive for a guy like Tannehill.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Stafford, do we try and buy into that nonsense again? That's been, a little on the weak side. Joe Burrow, obviously Tennessee's been giving up points. If we do think that this is the official start of Derrick Henry's season, Burrow's going to have to throw a considerable amount to just kind of keep pace.
Yeah, I mean, I love the attempts from Burrow, right? He's only one game this season as he attempted less than 36 passes because how bad Cincinnati's defense is. And I think this is where a lot of people this week are going to settle into their quarterback position. Burrow, Mayfield, both there at 62 and 61. And then even cheaper, and we'll touch upon other guys like Derek Carr at 55 have great matchups. So I don't think many people are going to go too much in the top tier. Like I said, I think Rodgers will be likely the highest owned guy, but then you'll see guys. I think we'll see a lot of people settle into this middle tier here.
Who's your favorite?
I think my favorite is going to be Burrow between him and Mayfield, but I really like Derek Carr this week. Again, we just saw Burrow throw all over Cleveland. Carr's passing attack has been much improved this season. Him and Aguilar have connected lately. They have Waller. Ruggs is back healthy. And what I like about Carr is his efficiency. The guy is throwing and completing passes at an over 70% clip on the year, 72%. So the fact that he can be on target, sustain drives, and gets a bad defense. I'm in on Carr this week.
Right on. All right. Would you pay down any further than that, or there's no need?
No, I don't think there's a need per se. I mean, Garoppolo at 54 maybe could be that guy. I mean, again, awful performance against New England, but the week before against the Rams, you saw him throw 3 touchdowns for 23 fantasy points. He is up against Seattle. If Jamal Adams doesn't play, they're going to really struggle to cover the tight end and George Kittle. I know Deebo Samuel's not there, but Brandon Ayuk had 100 yards last game. If Jerick McKinnon ends up being the primary back this week, he's a really solid pass catcher. So, I could see a stack there of Garoppolo because he's so cheap. And I'm sure Ayuk is also fairly inexpensive. I haven't looked at his price tag yet, but I would imagine that would be he's probably relatively cheap. And you pair him up with Kittle, who's one of the top price tight ends, and you can go from there.
All right. So there you go. So favorite mid-tier guy or favorite guy, really, Joe Burrow in the middle there, Derek Carr at the bottom end. If you are going to pay up, you might as well just hook it up with Aaron Rodgers. So good group there. Nice.
You got Henry at 8K at the running back position. So I guess you're questioning this week, if you're paying up, Dalvin Cook determined to be active this week, 75, and Henry at 8K. I think those are the two that everyone's going to really have to sort of decide. And then maybe Alvin Kamara just gets forgotten about.
And Alvin Kamara does get forgotten about. Yeah. But I mean, are you would you just rather just go with Derrick Henry against this horrible run defense, or would you, want to do the $200 more contrarian play of Kamara against a much better defense?
No, see, I've done this mistake before when I thought I was getting cute. and I played Aaron Jones that weekend against Tampa Bay, and that did not work in my favor. I think this is a week where you build your lineup around Derrick Henry. You put him in first, and you figure out where you go from there.
Okay, beautiful. I like Dalvin Cook against Green Bay. I think he's fine. I think he's healthy. I love Kareem Hunt against the Raiders. No doubt about it. But let's face it, if you're going to go with Derrick Henry, you're probably looking a little further down for the running back position.
Yeah, it depends. If you're going with Carr, Garoppolo, you could probably fit in those guys and not have a problem getting him in there. I like Jonathan Taylor, Indy coming out of a bye. Detroit's run defense is horrible. If they don't have a game plan here for Taylor to get the ball 20 times, I'm going to be very frustrated. I feel like they should be running him as much as possible. When given the opportunity, he's been productive. Only one game this year where he basically was the starter. Did he average less than 4 yards a carry? The last 2 games, 5 yards a carry, 4.8 yards a carry. But he only totaled 12 carries in each of those 2 games. So why are they not giving him the football more, Howard? It just perplexes me.
I don't really understand it either. You know what? Listen, there's a lot there's a lot of situations where I just don't like the way coaches are handling the younger backs. I really, I don't understand it. I definitely don't understand it. So
makes absolutely little sense. In my opinion.
All right. Anybody else in that range? Edward Zailer, Connor.
So Edwards-Helaire is interesting only because if you do get a blowout, like I feel like they're going to run the football with him. Like he's just going to be the guy to run out the clock. I don't think it's going to be Le'Veon Bell. But they got a big lead against Denver, and he only had 8 carries, and they sort of just spread it out. So it seemed like they kind of went away from what the traditional ground the clock out method is there. So I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have any of the Chiefs, honestly, even though it's kind of crazy to think because they're such big favorites. But I probably won't go there. I typically like Connor, but it's tough spot against Baltimore. Then you have a bunch of injuries at that mid-tier. So we're probably going all the way down. Darrell Henderson Jr. gets Miami. I think this is a game where, they should feature him more over like a guy like Malcolm Brown. I think it's more of a finesse running style against Miami than a ground and pound like we saw them go up against, with the Bears last week. So I think Henderson is in a good spot. I think Henderson's probably at 5,900. Melvin Gordon, I said on the Fantasy Alarm Show, I felt it was far too cheap at 5,600. Gets revenge game. They're home. Philip Lindsay's still in concussion protocol. I'm a big fan of Gordon at 56.
Gordon at 56. That's a nice price as well. I just, I get what you're saying about Henderson. I just don't necessarily know. I feel like, once we start investing in Henderson, that's all of a sudden when Akers starts getting the touches.
It's probably true, right?
Swift intrigues me a little bit at 5,300 as well. I'd like to see if Chris Carson is out and Hyde's going to be okay. Him at 5,300, also a very interesting one. And then obviously you can go down to Lev Bell at 46.
Yeah, those guys are fine. So Hyde's, I don't love the matchup against San Francisco. Obviously, I think they have a tough run defense there. But Hyde at 53, I think could be rather popular. Love Bell's. I wish the last game was more competitive because again, I don't think this one is going to be either because I didn't feel like we got a true usage of how the Chiefs plan to use Bell. They didn't throw to him at all. He only had 6 carries, but he played. I think it was like 30-something% of the snap. So, what exactly are we going to be seeing from Le'Veon Bell? It is the Jets. Maybe they want to score for a revenge narrative play. He's not a primary lineup guy for me, but he's someone I would consider. I think, we talk a lot about how bad Singletary's been. I think Zach Moss actually against a bad New England defense could be in a chance to continue the momentum there. He averaged 6.7 yards per carry against the Jets last week, did catch 3 passes after the disappointing return, from the injury there. So maybe Moss at 44, an interesting bounce back candidate.
I'd like to see that. I'd definitely like to see that happen with Moss. Again, you just look at the situation, you're like, I just don't know. I mean, to pay down that far doesn't really intrigue me. I just don't necessarily know if there's a guy down there who's really going to return the value that you want. I mean, I know he doesn't have to smash in order to, pay off himself, but I'm just not digging any of the names down there.
That's fine. Well, like Ryan played 70% of the snaps last week.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay.
I mean, am I really? I mean, is that what is that how you want to invest your money? You say, okay, well, I'm saving salary on Ryan, but I mean, how much are the Jets going to sit there and grind it out and try to run him?
No, but he's their pass catching back too. So I mean, I don't know, dump offs, PPR leagues. Again, listen, I understand to win the Millie Maker, you need everybody to have like 30 fantasy points, but if Ryan gets you 14 fantasy points like he did last week at 4,200, you're going to be okay. It's because he's saving you money where you're spending up elsewhere. So again, while I don't think he's a core lineup play, I also think if they're going to give him that much of a snap share, which is what you are calling for, then the potential is there. Now, I didn't like the fact that Frank Gore played 16 snaps and got 11 carries. I would have rather have seen, half of those carries still go to a Ryan there. But that just ended up not being the case because Adam Gase is a lunatic. So
Adam Gase is indeed a lunatic.
Is $8,800 too much to spend up for Devontae Adams?
Yeah, I feel like it might be. I mean, that's significant. I mean, 8,800. That's. I mean, especially if you're going to want to go with Derrick Henry in there, I don't necessarily know if you really, I mean, to get Adams and Henry in there, I mean, you're really having to pay down everywhere else.
Yeah, it's all right. If you want Adams and Henry to start your lineup, you're looking at $4,700 a player after that. So it can be done. You're going to have to find value, obviously, at defense and tight end, right, and kind of build the rest of your lineups like 5K guys. That would have to end up being the road that you're going to go. So we'll see if it can happen. Obviously, we'll see what kind of lineups we can build as we're going along here. Other than obviously Adams, you have Metcalf at 75 coming off a disappointing game against Arizona. Could have been a lot better had that touchdown call back at the very end there. Michael Thomas all of a sudden practicing 7,300. Adam Thielen scored in the matchup the first week against these teams here. 6 catches, 110 yards, and 2 touchdowns actually against Green Bay earlier in the year. Do any of those top price guys appeal to you more than the other?
Man, I hate having to choose the Seahawks receivers. I mean, again, Thielen is Jair Alexander going to be on him?
He was actually on him in the first game. And Thielen had success, which is kind of interesting because Alexander since then has just shut everybody down.
I mean, I get it. I'm probably looking a little further down rather than having to make that choice.
Who are you looking at?
Who am I looking at? Dare I go back to the?
No. I like Tyler Boyd at 6,600 against Tennessee. I think that's.
Yeah, I like Tyler Boyd over there as well. I think that's a nice play. Cooper Kupp, I think against Miami is a nice play as well.
Yep. Keenan Allen, again, somebody I talked about on the Fantasy Alarm show on Wednesday. I don't understand why he is priced the way he is. $6,200 is just far too cheap for a guy who has seen over 10 targets in 4 of the 6 games he's played this year. The one game where he was injured, he saw 2. Other than that, he's seen at least 8. I mean, Josh Herbert has targeted him heavily. The games that he's been starting, to me, it's just far too cheap of a price tag.
Yeah. I kind of like Marquise Hollywood-Brown. Pittsburgh's secondary is just, it's not a good secondary. It's their front 7. And so, I mean, if I can get Lamar Jackson to throw a couple of passes his way, I think that can open up. He's probably more of a GPP, and I'd lock down, Keenan Allen as both cash and GPP. But, Brown kind of interests me a little bit there as well. I really like Ayuk. How funny is that? I mean,
yeah, I honestly thought he was going to be cheaper. He's 5,800. I thought maybe he'd be around 5K.
Yeah. Well, he's just coming off of a 100-yard game, isn't he?
I know, but usually these sites are slow to react to that, So I honestly expected him to be cheaper. 5,800 is still fine, though. I agree with you. Under 6K is still a solid tag there. I'm not going to downplay it too much. I think given the matchup against Seattle, it's the upside is 100% there for him.
Yeah. So I like him. I don't mind T. Higgins as well.
Would you go back to Deontay Johnson finally getting a big bump there, 5,500? I know it's Baltimore.
Well, see, that's the thing. It's Baltimore, and I mean, this dude is made out of glass.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, he got his 2 touchdowns and then left the game, so you weren't bothered by it as much. But overall, it's frustrating.
It wasn't. Yeah, no, I agree. He's definitely made of glass, and he should have actually had a 3rd touchdown. He dropped a wide open pass that was kind of frustrating for owners. Howard, Derry mentioned the name AJ Green to you.
No, don't.
Well, I'm going to because he's $4,500.
I put him in the watch list for you, man. He's all yours.
I saw that. I appreciated the shout out there. I think it's a strong play. I do. I think it's again a guy getting a ton of targets, back-to-back games now, 13 and 11 targets, 17 and 15 fantasy points for everybody. And Tennessee's pass defense is not very good, and you have to feel. Now, he'll probably see Malcolm Butler, but Malcolm Butler really hasn't been that shutdown corner since he left New England. So I'm in on Green here again at 4,500. We know Burrow's going to be chucking.
Burrow's definitely going to be chucking. Green at 45. How about just a nice little pay down to Mike Williams for 44?
So I wish they would use Mike Williams more. Instead we see Herbert throwing these like deep passes to Guyton for big touchdowns, and I wish those were going to Mike Williams instead. Like he had 3 targets there, barely used, but in the game in which Keenan Allen got hurt, he had 5 for 109 and 2 scores. So what is it about Justin Herbert that he can only throw to one guy? Because that's what it seems like. It seems like he can only throw to one guy, and it's either Keenan Allen. If Keenan Allen's out, it's Mike Williams. But otherwise, it's like he doesn't. Nobody else really gets overly involved. So if you wanted to dart throw or game stack, Mike Williams at 4,400. It isn't awful, but just know that the floor is like a 0. So
the floor is definitely a 0.
Would you chase the points with Rashard Higgins?
No, probably not. I mean, it's an interesting one. It's definitely a fine move. I think a lot of people will chase the points, and I think for 4,200 and given the matchup, I think you might be able to use them for cash games. But I mean, am I enamored with that? No, not really. I'm not. I mean, when was the last time we saw, and you of all people should say this. I mean, Baker Mayfield, when was the last time you saw him put, string 2 really good games together?
No, it's rare. He's not a very good quarterback, and I've been fighting this battle all week with everybody who's like, he completed 22 passes in a row. You know what? I agree. That is fantastic. The dude only plays well against the Bengals, and I know you can only play who's on your schedule. But he literally, a 26 point, I think it was like 2% of his career touchdown passes have come against the Bengals. So next time he plays the Bengals next year, I'm all in on Baker Mayfield. But until then, it's questionable. Howard, someone that we went past here already is Nelson Aguilar. Do you think that Aguilar has the ability to repeat performance last week against a tough Tampa defense? 5 catches, 107 yards and a score, 3 straight games now with a touchdown for him.
He does have some sort of a connection with Derek Carr, right? Like the two of them rock solid with each other. Listen, Henry Ruggs stretches the field. Hunter Renfrow doesn't really get targeted all that much. I mean, it's all Waller and Aguilar right now. So, I mean, do you go against that trend, or do you just kind of ride that wave until they show you that, Carr's going to keep throwing to other people? I think they kind of have to just, coast with it. And for 4,700, I mean, why not?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to give you my dartboard play now. And I want to know what your take of it is here. And I guess this is a pending dartboard play. It's pending on Allen Robinson, but Darnell Mooney is $3,500.
Darnell Mooney is $3,500. Yes.
And that's cheap. That is cheap for a guy that has seen no less than 5 targets in the last 5 games, had 7 last week, 9 against Indy in week 4. Could very easily be the number 1 target this week against the Saints. And the Saints defense, pass defense, actually hasn't been that strong this year.
No, their pass defense hasn't been strong. But for the same token, if there's nobody else, then, why, I mean, how could they not be able to guard him, right?
I mean, I don't know. Isn't that really what we say about every team's number 1 wide receiver? It's like, how do they keep letting Devontae Adams go for 200 yards when they have nobody else, right? Like, I mean, listen, I agree.
But that's Devontae Adams.
I
Devontae Adams
is a
totally different talent.
I get it. Okay, I understand. Foles missed Mooney a lot actually last week too. He had him open a handful of times and just underthrew him. But I'm just saying he's 3,500. If you're looking for any sort of cheap dartboard play, Darnell Mooney this week. If Allen Robinson is out, if Allen Robinson's in, I still think Mooney's okay because Mooney's getting 7 targets when Robinson's healthy. So, if you're looking for a dartboard, a cheap play, someone that you really to save some salary for, I think he's likely the only one you could take a look at. I don't want to dig into, the Patriots guys, right? No Julian Edelman, no N'Keal Harry, like Jacoby Myers, Demir Birder, both under $4,000. Gunnar Olszewski's under $4,000. Like I don't really want to go there. I don't know. I guess there's some cheaper guys that you could look at. Josh Reynolds recently has been more involved. He's $3,100 back-to-back weeks with a touchdown. Again, these are just deep dives. Kendrick Bourne maybe is someone you have interest in Howard at 3,500.
Yeah, Kendrick Bourne actually. I was looking at Jen Piacenti's deep cuts, and she had mentioned Bourne. Not she wasn't featuring him, but he does make a little bit of sense with no Deebo Samuel there. But I mean, he's also not really seeing a whole heaping load of targets. So I mean, as a dart throw, maybe. But I'm not gonna sign off on him just yet for the dartboard. Any
trust in Denzel Mims?
Very limited trust against any New York Jet, man.
Okay. Is he back on IR?
I gotta call him like I see him, man. I gotta call him like I see him.
DraftKings is throwing me off. It has an IR tag next to his name, but not actually next to his name. So, I mean, hey, 4 catches, 7 yards, 42. 4 catches and 7 targets with 42 yards in his debut there. So, that's fine. All right, let's go to the tight end spot here. For me, Darren Waller is my number 1. Andrew Cooper put him as the cover feature for his tight end coach this week as well. So no secret there. He gets a great matchup here against Cleveland.
No real major secret there. It's definitely a nice spot for him. I mean, yeah, listen, I love him. He's a great player. I mean, if I'm stacking, I'm going with like Carr, Waller, and Aguilar. Set it up like that. I mean, he's the dude's a target monster. It's all he gets. So, it's kind of funny. Mark Andrews, always when he goes up against like a crap team, he smashes. He goes up against a good team in a meaningful game and he doesn't. So, to bypass him altogether, from Kittle, Kelsey down to Waller, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Anybody else in the mid tier that's jumping out to you?
Not really. You don't know what to do with Gesicki. Noah Fant, I mean, maybe if he stays healthy.
The targets continue to be there for him when he's on the field, at least.
Yeah, they are. Jonnu Smith against Cincinnati is a nice matchup, but obviously you and I have had the discussion before as to what kind of a role is he going to have with everybody getting healthy on that Titans team. So it is still a really nice matchup for him there. This position is kind of a cesspool. I think Jimmy Graham at 4,600 in the revenge game narrative.
Yeah,
is the way I'm going.
Yeah, revenge game narratives in play. I like Trey Burton coming out of a bye against Detroit. I think there could be some potential there. Do you trust either of the Cleveland tight ends after their strong games? Njoku's 38, but Harrison Bryant is 32.
Yeah, I mean, that's, are we chasing points there? Vegas against the tight end. Let me just take a look and see. just on some basic numbers, and I mean they're average.
It looks like they're in the middle of the pack in terms of average fantasy points allowed.
Yeah.
And it also depends on who exactly they've played so far that uses their tight end also. Can skew that number a little bit, but the tight end was becoming part of the Browns offense. If you look at the success Hooper had prior to his appendicitis attack, so maybe Bryant, who started last week, could be sort of picking up that mantle.
Sure. He could, but again, then we could also say, well, the trade deadline is November 3rd, and maybe they want to feature Njoku some more.
It's very, very possible. Howard, I don't even know how to say this person's last name. Fency just called him Albert O, but he's $2,800. He's the Denver Broncos, I guess, tight end 2. But in the last 2 weeks, he's got 13 targets. He's $2,800. Is there any interest here? Apparently, he was their 4th round pick. It's
Okwuegbunam.
Is that a guess or a no? Do you know how to say it is?
I know how to say. Yeah, it's Okwuegbunam.
There you go. See, you're better than I am at this. I got to practice.
You know what it was, man? It was all the African names in the WNBA that Steve Pimentel taught me how to say properly.
Oh, you know what? That's true. That WNBA podcast finally coming in handy.
I mean, possible. I mean, it's it's a dart. It's a dart throw.
Okay. Again, don't want to waste everybody's time here with $2,800 tight ends that we can't pronounce their name, but the targets, again, as I always say to you, I'm a slave for those. So if I see a guy with 13 targets in 2 weeks, I'm going to have to at least bring him up. All right, Howard, jump over to the defense. Is there a reason not to pay up for the Chiefs?
I don't think so.
Other than, of course, if you can't afford them.
Yeah, I mean, really, Chiefs, Rams, because it's going to be Tua's first game. That's intriguing. You could say maybe Saints, even though their defense hasn't been good. Foles makes a ton of mistakes. But, you look through it and you just kind of look at the matchups. There's nothing really that I'm in love with that's not on the high end of the defensive scale.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I have the Colts just because they're coming out of the bye at 3,100. They have a pretty strong defense numbers-wise. I wish they got after the quarterback a little bit more, but they turned the ball over with interceptions, and we know Stafford can throw some picks and make bad decisions at times. And then Miami is actually somewhat intriguing to me as well. You have the Rams going cross-country. It's an early game for them. Miami home out of the bye. And they're a team that actually is pretty aggressive, and they get some sacks. So if you're looking to spend down, either the Colts or Miami being 2 of the options.
All right. Beautiful. I have no other opinions on any of the other teams.
Have you made a lineup?
I did. I don't love it, though.
Okay.
I went with your Derek Carr.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, Melvin Gordon, Tyler Boyd, Keenan Allen, Nelson Aguilar, Jimmy Graham at the tight end. I gave you LaMichael Pirine as the flex because you were so into using him for 4,300.
Mm-hmm.
And the Chiefs D.
Not bad. I also have a very similar lineup to yours. I too went with the Derek Carr stack, $5,500. Derrick Henry at 8K, Melvin Gordon at 5,600. Devontae Adams at wide receiver, 88. Nelson Aguilar at 47. AJ Green at 45. Darren Waller to complete the Carr stack with Aguilar at tight end. Rashard Higgins at 4,200. And I went with a Colts D at 3,100. That leaves me with $0 remaining as salary. So
I have $0 remaining as well.
So that's the play, Howard. I hope you. I wish you best of luck with your lineups. Of course, everybody, we will have the playbook dartboard out for you on Saturday, Sunday. We have the Fantasy Alarm live stream with Jen and Howard from 11 to 12. Live chat from 11 to 1 right up to roster lock, answering all your questions. Of course, even before then, you can always hit us up on Twitter. Get us in the Fantasy Alarm subscriber chat there for you. basically 12 hours a day answering all your questions as needed. Howard, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I think that's gonna do it, man. I think we're on the right path. Let's just see if we can get to the finish line.
We are on the right path. I was happy to get a lineup with Henry and Adams. I'm gonna go ahead and submit that one now. $1 million coming my way. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.